Hey, and welcome back, beautiful souls. I am so grateful that you are here. I am grateful for the time and presence you bring into this moment. And in the last episode, we talked a lot about awakening and stirring the truths that your heart whispers beneath the noise. We took a lot of intentional time just to live into gratitude and wonder and awe of how beautiful life is, simply because it's lived, because it's felt, because it's experienced, not because of perfection, not because of accomplishments, but because we're alive, and honoring our life with every kind of era as if it's different pieces in an art gallery. Offering gratitude to who we became in the moments, both seen and unseen. I just want to continue to develop that in this episode. Now that you have this overflowing heart full, of course, we naturally want to turn to others, outward, to give, to contribute, to innovate, to serve. And inside those impulses is our sense of purpose. So often we are taught that our purpose comes through our identity: parent, caregiver, partner, healer, teacher, artist, advocate, educator, whatever it is. And over time, our identity gets more and more narrowed. So I'll use myself as an example. Okay, if I'm a healer, well, who am I allowed to heal? Okay, children. Okay, now like through which system? Okay, the heart. Okay, now in what way? Okay, only when they're really, really sick. And slowly, without realizing it, I confuse my greater purpose with a really specific role. And please put your own, roles in here. If it's, a full-time caregiver, it's also like the same things. Like, well, who am I allowed to care for? Okay, just these people in this house, my parents, my children, Well, in what way? Well, okay, I need to care for them by providing meals, and we start listing the tasks as if that gives us our identity. And so we get really honed in on these specific roles guided by these specific tasks. And we forget that we're here to embody this greater thing. So I want to ask you this question, what is the purpose that you want to live in this season, knowing that it can always change? So if I go back to myself, okay, I want to embody, let's say, healing, but it's not just to perform the identity of a physician, because when I over-identify with my role, I unknowingly inherit all these rules and expectations and limitations about what it means in this modern day era to practice Western medicine to the specific population, for example. And my purpose gets distilled, diluted, just boxed in. And I start to believe that my contribution can only look a certain way. And when that happens, alignment feels really hard. I'm not allowing myself to recalibrate, to choose, to adjust, The gratitude fades, the beauty goes away, and my sense of power also diminishes, because all I see are the limits and all the ways that I can't give the way I really want to give, heal the way I want to heal. And so the same way that in last week's episode, we expanded our sense of beauty through gratitude and wonder and awe, this week we're going to expand our sense of purpose, because purpose is not owned by a title. I want to share a story that makes me laugh now, but back then I couldn't see it. In 2019, after 12 years of postgraduate training, I remember sitting on my parents' couch in their house and saying to my mom, I don't know what to do. Mom, I've spent all this time on my education, and I know that my mission is to be an untethered force of love in this world. How am I supposed to do that? And it's kind of funny. It makes me smile, because love can be expressed through anything, in any moment. I'm wearing my little love embroidered sweater today for this episode. Back then, I couldn't see it. I could only look at life through the identity that I was creating. I was so tightly, rigidly held to that role, that expectation of what I thought that had to look like. So I thought love had to look miraculous, huge, life-changing, and in very specific ways. I didn't see or acknowledge, I couldn't appreciate that listening to a patient was powerful love. That asking a 5-year-old permission to touch their body, to examine them, was powerful love. That bringing respect into a conflict was powerful love. My own limitations about what purpose had to look like limited me, because purpose is limitless. Purpose is lived, it's felt, it's not completed by an outcome. And science actually supports this way of relating to purpose. There's a growing body of research on non-attachment. It's not detachment and it's not indifference. It's a flexible, grounded way of engaging with life without clinging to outcomes or identities. And non-attachment has been shown to be associated with greater well-being, lower psychological distress, and more pro-social behavior, even when you account for mindfulness and self-compassion. So that's huge because we already know how powerful mindfulness and self-compassion are. So in other words, it's not just about being present or being kind to yourself. It's about releasing the need for life, for you, for your purpose to look a certain way in order to be okay. This is from the Journal of Clinical Psychology, 2022, and Psychology and Psychotherapy, 2021. And I'm going to put them in the show notes as usual. But what's especially powerful is that non-attachment predicts better emotional health, even in people experiencing depressive symptoms, sometimes more strongly than self-compassion. Because instead of asking us to feel a certain way about ourselves, as self-compassion asks us to do, non-attachment allows us to hold both the beauty and the struggle without resistance. And this isn't only reflected in our internal state. So people who practice non-attachment are actually perceived by others as more helpful and kind. When we're not gripping to our identities, to our purpose, to our outcomes, we show up with more generosity, with more presence, with more love. When purpose is lived this way, it stops being something that we have to prove and do and starts becoming something that we embody and who we are. Purpose isn't lived for someone else. It's the essence of our why. So if my purpose were only complete when every patient felt listened to, I would never be fulfilled. I would never fulfill my purpose. My purpose has to be lived through me and not validated by someone else's response. This is what I mean to awaken your purpose. Your purpose is so much greater than any outcome you think it needs to produce. It's the reason you do what you do, the way that you show up, the qualities you embody. Your purpose doesn't disappear when your job changes, when your relationship shifts, when your life evolves. It lives in your why. And when our actions align with that why, something really important happens inside the body. Research from Health Psychology 2019 shows that people with a stronger sense of purpose experience less internal conflict in the brain when making decisions aligned with long-term values. So instead of activating high levels of threat and conflict, the brain actually is working more efficiently, less friction, less resistance, less exhaustion. Purpose is linked to faster emotional recovery after stress. People with purpose don't necessarily react less to hard moments. They actually, they might be more fired up, but they recover more quickly. Their nervous system settles sooner. The stress response doesn't linger as long. So on a day-to-day level, purpose acts like a beautiful buffer. On stressful days, people with purpose experience fewer physical symptoms, less negative emotion than those without it. So It's not that purpose like magically eliminates difficulty. No, but it just organizes our energy. It gives our effort direction instead of friction. When our why is so big, when it's aligned with who we want to be, we find it everywhere. It's not limited to our role, our task, our identity. And that means when things get hard, something else important happens. You are forced to become the who that can live out that why. That is where power comes from. There's a difference between circumstantial power and personal power. Circumstantial power is when the environment around you makes it easy to live into your purpose. There's time available, people are kind and supportive, the stakes are low. It's easy to be powerful and purposeful. Actually, it doesn't take a lot of power, right? Because the circumstance is giving you the power. But when the environment changes and that circumstantial power disappears, personal power is what makes you fortify under the pressure. Personal power means you influence yourself, no matter the environment around you. It doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside. It matters what it is. It's not what I do. It's who I am while I do it. That is personal power. So when pressure rises, the nervous system either fractures or fortifies. This is where your personal power is built. This is where you fortify. And science, again, supports this. I'll put the journals of PLOS 1, 2013, and the Annals of Behavioral Medicine, 2018, in the show notes. But there's articles that say that when people reconnect with their values, which is our sense of purpose, before or during stress, that their bodies respond differently. The stress hormone, cortisol, which you all know, doesn't spike quite as high. The nervous system stays more regulated. The system recovers faster. This isn't about like thinking positively. It's about alignment, embodiment of our purpose. Purpose reduces the brain's sense of threat during difficult choices. So that internal tug of war, not so hard. You know what to do. You've got purpose to guide you. And over time, as you consistently act in alignment, especially when it's hard, builds biological resilience, not just psychological resilience. As I was researching all of this for us to learn, one important nuance that I came across is that when you try to force meaning in the middle of a stressor, it can actually increase the strain. So the benefit is from it really being in alignment with you, not from like scrambling to find purpose in the heat of the moment, just because you want to make life easy. It's more about being and staying rooted in your purpose when life is hard. It's less about like, okay, universe, please make this easy for me, and more like, okay, universe, give me the courage to handle what's hard. Less like, okay, universe, please only give me beautiful things. And more like, okay, universe, help me find the strength to see the beauty in the pain. When you hold your why like it's your mission, honey, there is no way forward except to grow into your power. And that is beautiful. That is your becoming. Your why is your becoming. Your who is your becoming. That makes for a rich life. I think so often we get it backwards. We chase the strategies. How to be more efficient. The 3 steps to have a better relationship. The manual on how to build a meaningful life. But the thing about strategies is they're empty if there is no purpose. They're not sustainable. I don't think that burnout is a failure of strategy. I think it's a failure of alignment. So the more interesting question is the why. So why do you want to be more efficient? Why do you want to have a better relationship? Why do you want to read this manual on a meaningful life? Not the how, the why. When you hold the why, you become the who. You become the person who figures out 1,000 hows. I want to leave you with this. We don't need to learn how to find our purpose. We just need to awaken that inner drive that pulls us out of bed. We don't need to learn how to be powerful. We need to awaken our empowering. Your becoming already knows the way. Let this episode be an invitation to just notice, what is your why? To let it guide you, to honor who you're becoming, and to trust that your power grows when you stay connected to what matters most. So for our ending tradition, here are some questions to explore. What is my purpose? Unattached from roles, identities, tasks, like in a way that has no labels. Maybe some examples are to explore, to learn, to critically think. Unattached. What is my purpose? Once I have that clear, now can I start to see in my everyday life, no matter how big or small, how can I connect to that purpose? And let that be enough. Not what it has to look like, not the outcome, not the judgments I have around the performance of it, the getting of it, the achieving of it. Just honoring that I am living it, I am holding it, I am carrying it. Is there anywhere in my life I'm all tripped up on how do I do this? How do I do that? And in that situation, let me ask myself, not how do I do this? Why? Why do I want to do this? And when I get clear on that, who do I need to become to live out the why? And then let me play with 1,000 hows, because I am the who to live the why. Wishing you to awaken your purpose and to grow into your power. Wishing you to feel supported in this space and so honored to be a part of your soul tribe. Sending you love, and I'll see you next week. Bye.